Hello and welcome to Michael and Ivanka's Grand Podcast, a weekly podcast where we practice shutting up and letting someone else talk.
Very good. And I always laugh no matter how you describe the podcast.
My name's Michael Forrest.
And my name's Ivanka Magic.
This week we're talking about a hot topic as of 2 years ago. Fake news.
Fake news.
We're going to talk about it in the pre- and post-Trump senses. And I went to a talk about it with a panel of so-called experts in Shoreditch a couple of weeks ago. So, yeah, I got lots of notes from that.
And I mostly have thoughts and opinions.
Responses, no doubt.
Responses to things that I'm told, and that's it, really.
All right, well, without any further twatting about, let's get on with it. First, how are you, Ivanka?
I am good. I was thinking about an hour ago how I was going to start this when you asked me how I was. I was going to say that I was really, really tired, but I have since had a Turkish coffee with sugar in it.
Bob Mortimer used to have 18 sugars in his tea. He goes, 19's too sweet, though.
That is made up.
Well, I keep seeing
that is fake news, Michael Forrest.
Well, I keep getting these clips from YouTube of the show where it's like, am I lying or not? And it's always Bob Mortimer with an elaborate story that 99% of the time turns out to be true. Like he does his own dentistry.
Because he's as mad as he's funny.
He's very funny. I don't know if you saw the fishing thing. That was good as well. Him and Paul Whitehouse fishing together. It's good. Anyway, sorry, back to your week.
Back to my week. So my week has been a fascinating roller coaster ride through Balkan bureaucracy.
Shit.
Because I was born in England and I have a middle name, which is Mary. I'll confess to all of you.
I am.
Yes, I'm Magic. That's why I'm Magic, because my middle name's Mary. Anyway. When we came to Yugoslavia to register my birth many years ago, they said, you can't have two names. We must put a hyphen in between them.
Okay.
And so the hyphen just sat there. Nobody really was bothered about it until the day that I went to register my child as a Croat. And they went, but the mother's name is Ivanka space Mary, but the woman who is a citizen of Croatia is Ivanka hyphen Mary.
It sounds extremely responsible bureaucrating.
It's a very responsible bureaucrating. So I went, can't you sort it out? You're a registrar. And they went, no, you're going to have to go to the capital. And I went, I don't want to go to the capital.
Capital, it sounds like Game of Thrones. How far away is the capital?
The capital. From Ireland to capital is 4 hours drive plus an hour on a ferry. To get off the island, 50 minutes on a ferry. So
it is the same as Game of Thrones.
It's the same.
We went to King's Landing.
So this week, and I've been postponing, and I was so upset. When I went to register my child, I dutifully, like a responsible adult, gone and got all my papers with stamps on them, FCO, apostille stamps, I do believe is the proper pronunciation. So when you post-Brexit, when we're all trying to apply for our citizenship,
we're all going to know about this. You should just call the episode that for the SEO.
If you want to take your birth certificate to a foreign country and prove that it's real, you have to send it to the Foreign and Commonwealth Office, and they put a stamp on it and a little piece of paper, and that charge you 30 quid. So I dutifully got all my papers stamped. I'd got them translated by a court-approved and official translator. I'd done everything, and I turned up at this registrar, and she was like, hyphen, no. So a year later, because that's how long it took me to psych myself up to go to the capital to sort this out, I was like, Mummy, will you come with me? So I made my mum come with me, because you need someone to hold your hand when you're dealing with officials. Well, I do. You might not, or one might. I do.
It's certainly someone to text constantly.
Yes, exactly. So I took my mother with me, and so we drove up the day before. We slept in we found a lovely campsite, let me tell you, that I have dutifully reviewed on Park4Night, the van owner's app. Anyway,
What's happening? You went to the capital and you went to camping. What is happening? What is this capital?
well, you had to sleep in one. I wasn't going to pay for a hotel on top of everything else.
What's this? Is the capital got a name, or are you just
Zagreb.
Right, okay.
The capital of Croatia is called Zagreb.
I mean-
or as my mother has mockingly started calling it, is Zag-Reb.
Okay,
in all her text messages to me, she now goes, hope-fully.
That's good. That's high level.
Oh, and I laugh a lot. So we woke up early on our campsite, drove to the special registrars for Croats that are born abroad, which is what I am. And I walked into this bit. I literally felt sick and was quite shaky because I'm so used to these bureaucratic processes, just taking on the subject of power and respect, as discussed in previous episodes. These people hold an enormous amount of power over you.
Oh, yeah.
If over nothing else, just your time and your energy. I mean, bearing in mind, there's no life critical event here. I've got till she's 18 to register as a Croatian citizen, so it's not exactly pressing. It just needs to be sorted. So I walk in this building feeling sick and I'm met by a guard who goes, ID? I'm like, I haven't got ID, I've got a British passport. She went, that's okay. And she smiled. And she wrote down, and then she sent me to the room 10 something. So I went upstairs, knocked on the room, and a lady very nicely and kindly explained to me that I needed to go to the Ministry of Internal Affairs.
Okay.
But she gave me the address, so I trundled off to the Ministry of Internal Affairs. I had to go to room 207.
Right, you remember that one.
Where the lady wouldn't give me her name. Because I was like, hi, I'm Ivanka, what's your name? And she went, I'm here. I was like, okay, you're here. So I said, I just wanted to thank you for your help. She first of all looked at all my bits of paper and kind of tutted and took sharp intakes of breath. And then she said, but you could sort this out at the Croatian Embassy in London. I was like, I'd rather come here because I'm here now. And everyone's told me I have to come here to the capital. Can't you sort it out? So in front of me, she gave me a piece of paper and a pen and went, write this, tapping on the piece of paper, and literally dictated to me the letter that I needed to write to her to ask her to change my hyphen.
Nice.
And it was literally to the risk, because at the top you have to put to the Ministry of Internal Affairs, and it puts request, and then I had to write to the honourable above named, please may I request, and then obviously I haven't handwritten anything for bloody ages, never mind in Croatian. So I was like frantically, I only had one typo. Well, what's a handwritten
Just a mistake.
Thing? A mistake. So I crossed it out, put brackets around it like my mother taught me.
Right.
Cat writing, and then I had to go and get everything photocopied twice, but she said don't go to macro over the road because their photocopier's not very good and we can't read it. So I went to a different photocopier, and now I have to wait 3 months.
Okay, but
for my hyphen.
Hyphen. God damn it! But so you had two helpful people.
I did.
Okay. That's nice.
I was just they were really helpful people, which shocked me enormously.
One was nameless. One you'll never know.
One was nameless.
The name.
She refused to give me a name. But yeah, I was so psyched up for it to be a nightmare because, even my first meeting with the registrar a year ago, who kind of went, no, she even said to me, well, what did you do this for? I was like, I didn't do it. And then I think, because I was pumping adrenaline and so nervous about it, that I was absolutely exhausted. And then I had to drive all the way back.
Yikes.
But
yeah. That
I had a nice road trip with my mum.
The tears in the eyes at the bureaucratic threshold. It's
while the lady who wouldn't give me her name was sitting there tapping things on her computer and making me, I was so polite. I ended up making notes about what the difference is between respect and fear.
Right.
I was like, how, if respect is to hold somebody in high regard, it's I don't hold her in high regard. I do now because she was very nice and helpful. Yeah. But it's like, I don't respect you. I am afraid of you and what you can do to me and what you can do. And in this ministry, obviously, it's full of refugees and people. You can see there's, I went to a special room for foreign, Croats born abroad. But there's all these other people queuing down the corridor with, to be met by officials who probably sit there going, no. It's like, so I'm like, at least I've got no, I can work, earn a living, travel. So it wasn't exactly life-threatening.
Yeah.
But
well, it's bad enough when it's holiday-threatening, let alone life-threatening.
It is. It's just,
well, holidays. Yeah, I feel like, my thing feeling kind of, it's like, well, I mean, it's kind of a first world problem, maybe not getting to go on holiday, but then I'm like, it's what it represents. I haven't had a holiday for so long and I just need a break. And it's coming up to my age threshold. And it's like, if this is taken away from me, I'm just going to all that hard work.
It's true. When that first lady did the, you're going to have to come to Zagreb. And I said, it's not that easy for me to come to Zagreb. And she said, well, it's like, I can't just pop down the road to Zagreb. And I said, if I fly in, I've got to take time off work. It's going to cost me money just to come to you, for you to remove a hyphen. Seems utterly ludicrous. And this sort of assumption that you've got all the time in the world to give to their processes. But yeah, when you find a helpful one, God bless them. That's what I say.
Well, it puts a different spin on that, like being stopped by a police officer who will then waste some of your time as punishment. Like writing things down. The part of the punishment is just you were in a hurry and now you've got to stop and wait for ages. But the fact that if that's the punishment, then what did you do wrong? What did you do to deserve it when you have to kind of go into the capital and all things? Anyway, well done for making some progress and not swearing or showing any rage.
That was so nice. I channeled all my good upbringing. And my mother would have been delighted. How was your week, Michael?
This week, I finally successfully made my mechanical, music module trigger module, which you plug into the time sync output of a modular synth, and it spins a disc round once every sort of bar, and then I sort of punch holes in it and then shine a light through it onto a photo sensor, and then that triggers hi-hats and things, so I can have physical little discs of rhythms that I can sort of interchange as part of my music playing.
Right.
Which is sort of highly inspired by the work of Graham Dunning, who's I mentioned before, and I did his video mechanical techno thing. But his is sort of with huge records with pegs sticking out of them and big, heavy, clunky things, and those test tube stand things that you had at school. He kind of has a load of those wired up. But I wanted a little sort of compact version that I could sort of plug into the rest of my sort of modular music equipment. And and it's been so hard to get that stepper motor thing working. I had to really, I had to get a special chip because you have to invert the current and stuff and do weird stuff. So it's not trivial to, just turning a motor around is surprising. A stepper motor is a motor that goes in discrete steps. So each time it gets a click, it clicks round one step, and then there's 96 steps, and then that's what the timecode signal is. So it means that, and I had to order these special motors from India, and I blew 4 of them, which probably cost me 70 quid just in those. And then, the motors themselves are maybe a £5, but then the shipping was 30, 40 quid or something for a few.
What was so special about the ones from India?
Just, I needed I didn't want steps most stepper motors you buy are in 100 increments, but I wanted 96 increments, or a factor of 12 style one, because that's what the musical time code is. But yeah, very excited. Look at my Instagram for the little prototype. I'm so proud of myself. When I got that working, and I was so proud with how quickly I got other half of it once I'd got the motor going around. Because I've been, this same time last year, I was kind of tinkering with this Arduino stuff, and I was getting really stuck on stuff all the time, and it'd keep dragging out. But today, yesterday, I just kind of knew, pin 4 on this one can't be assigned to an interrupt. It has to be 2 or 3. I remember this because I put it on 4 and it doesn't work. And I just switched it. It works. And just all of those things that were just baffling, you can only have what? All really specific weird things about particular chips. So I'm very proud of that. And but the next step is kind of manufacture. I can't find a plate the right width, and I've got to mount it and drill holes and find a way of having a little sliding pair of components that go above and below the disc and things like that. But I'll figure it out. It'll be fine. That was exciting.
Right, it's exciting. That's a good story.
Is it?
Yes, that is a good story. Bravo.
Okay. Second one, I've been, after last week, this didn't make it into the podcast. I was talking about how musical inspiration always seems to strike me at 1 a.m. on a Sunday night when I've got to go to work the next morning, even though I've had a whole week beforehand not, free. I've had a holiday or something. And it just always comes at the worst time. But I was feeling a bit disingenuous about it because I think the last time I actually did anything about that was 8 years ago. I think I've just been sort of turning up and doing things in the day. But on Thursday night, I woke up from this dream at sort of 3 a.m. and there was this song in this dream just playing. And I woke up and I was like, that's a good song. I like that. I guess I wrote it. I'm going to use it. I'm going to take it. Everyone in the dream is me, so I'm not going to overthink it either. Lyrics maybe wouldn't be something I'd normally write, but it's just a love song, and it's sort of hung together well in the dream. And I was like, okay, but I've got to kind of remember what I was saying and actually get myself, because you need to sing these things into you think in the middle of the night that you're going to remember the tune. You think you're going to remember it. You always think you're going to remember it. I'll remember that in the morning. No chance. You just have no idea. So I sort of dragged myself out of bed, picked up my phone, sort of went to the bathroom, which is down some little stairs. Sharon's like, oh. I'm like, no, I've just got to go. And I kind of record this melody, and then I kind of get back into bed, and I'm like, I'm now thinking of a verse. So I sort of pull myself out. I end up having to sort of pull myself out of bed 4 times to go to the bathroom and hum something into my phone, and then say something so that I don't forget it. And then I'm still for another half hour writing down lyrics and things, and eventually I get sleep. But then the next day we were supposed to record the podcast, and you said you were delayed, but it just meant that I was able to spend all of yesterday working on this song. I'm quite proud of myself for how I proved this to myself a few years ago, that I can, if I know the sound I want, I can get it. So I'm quite proud of myself that if I know how it sounded in the dream, so I know how to make all that come together. So that's what I've been doing. And I'm like, yeah. And also I just really love, and it's this thing of having this studio. I had a bit of a moment this week of I don't like this. I don't like being on my own all day. I don't like not really having someone tell me what to do. But I mean, technically I'm getting paid. I got paid for a couple of projects, so I'm not completely kind of out in the cold, but I was like, I just don't like this being on my own all the time. And I'm not really, am I using the studio? But then I'm like, well, I am recording the podcast in here. But then just on the day that I did have the inspiration, I did need to record it, was just such a, no barriers to just being able to record the song. And then recording it, playing it back, listening to it. I've got really nice speakers. I've got a treated room. Taking it back home, playing it on the speakers at home, or playing it in headphones and going, yep, that's what I wanted it to sound like. Instead of when you don't have that setup, you play it on something else and you're like, oh God, what? It just sounds wrong because there was a resonance in your room. There's acoustics. Right. It was all very specific. So that is a great privilege, and it sort of makes the money I'm spending on this place kind of all worthwhile. Just that, well, hopefully this song will. It's very much I don't think anyone can be made uncomfortable by it, which is quite good for me. That's what I seem to specialise in, stuff that, oh, that's cool. Oh, no, you made me feel weird. Oh, I don't want to hear that again. Bit like
Well, if you send it over, I'll have a listen. I'd love to listen to your productive week's
Well, there's
results.
a good story as well. I decided, because I've been playing this computer game all week, Hollow Knight. It's a very beautifully done game, and the music in it. I just got stuck on this. I was playing this game on Thursday, and then I got stuck on this boss, but then I thought, I think there's something about the music and something about the sound in that bit that I was like, I think I'm going to use some of that in this song. And I never sample. I swore off sampling years ago, but I thought this is quite. But I'm going to go and rip the game samples and this is how I started when I was, 13 on my Amiga. The only way to get sound, like music samples and beats and like strings and pianos and things was to play a game, restart the computer, load up this sample editing program and go to the end of the RAM. And like there'd still be the samples in there and you could chop them out and save them. And then that was how I got all my samples. So, yesterday I was kind of doing the modern equivalent of that, which was this game happens to be done in Unity, someone's written something where you can rip the assets out of Unity games, but it only works on Windows, so I had to kind of set up a virtual machine and kind of get Windows running and then get all the kind of environment set up on Windows so I could run this program and then kind of figure out how to get all the samples out. But I managed to figure it out. I got the samples that I needed.
So this was part of your activity yesterday?
Yeah, this is part of the composition process, kind of like ripping the samples out of this game. But I liked it. But I thought it'd be a good story. I thought it'd be quite a good sort of like callback to how I started out. So I can sort of say that when I send it to people. And isn't that why people care about things? Because of the story. Also, I haven't done any press on my app, and I kind of need to talk to you about... I need Nick to give me some advice, I think,
on your calorie app.
On how to spend your life promoting a thing, like rather than just kind of making other stuff instead. The calorie app. I've got a few downloads, but like hardly any. And I just need to sort of do the press drive. I haven't sent a single email yet, and I just don't want to email anyone. So this week we're going to talk about fake news, partly because I went to this Parliamentary Internet Communications and Technology Forum on fake news a couple of weeks ago, which had this panel of experts talking about fake news. So, Ivanka wanted me to go. She was like, "Can you go to this?"
Ivanka made him go.
Ivanka made me go. So I was like, I guess if Ivanka's made me go, I should probably. We're going to want to talk about this on the podcast. In which case, I should probably make some notes so that I'm not just going, and then the one guy went this, and then the other guy said, I can't remember exactly what he said. And then the other, so this woman was like, well, but I can't quite. I thought, well, why don't I write down all the quotes and write down the names and kind of try and do a good job. So I've got a few pages of notes, which I probably should have reread before coming on to. I just realised it's like, what is all this?
Was there some sort of definition of fake news?
Council of Europe person, Sei Akiwowo, founder of Glitch UK, she broke it down into misinformation, which is unintentional, disinformation, which is sort of knowingly fake news, and then malinformation, which is sort of like leaks, harassment, hate speech type related things. That was how people tried to define it.
Fake news, in my head, is things that look like or are reported in what would be considered to be acceptable channels or mainstream press, things that you'd find that are more along this line of misinformation, disinformation, and that kind of like
malinformation. Yeah.
If it's, I don't know, like that Fox News thing where the woman was telling everybody that in Denmark socialism's ruined everybody's lives or something, which is a genuine Fox News video, that's supposedly a proper news channel.
But for me, so when fake news became this kind of buzzword, I did some research into it at the time of Trump getting elected, and to just try and see what these sort of like Hillary stories were. Oh, Hillary's aide murdered someone in a hotel room, and all this kind of like complete propaganda style fake news, because we were suddenly becoming aware of this sort of like alternative bubbles, alternative realities that other people were living in via Facebook. But it was very much like fake news is we're going to just make stories up for clickbait / manipulative purposes, that these websites that look like news websites, but actually if you dig a little bit, you realise that they were set up by Cambridge Analytica. They were set up by someone that wants to kind of farm links, or they were set up by, foreign governments. But it was very sort of, these are stories that have been manufactured and use the fact that the internet can make sort of illegitimate stuff look just as legitimate as stuff that has journalistic ethics behind it and is accountable, and people suddenly start, because they find something that goes with their beliefs, they find this article that sort of agrees with them, so they don't look any further. And I think we're all guilty of that. Like if we agree with something, we don't tend to sort of want to do any more research into it, because it's like, oh, well, that reinforces my worldview, so I'll just assume it's true. And I've tried to become better at that. And, there's someone on my Facebook that started sort of posting things up, and I was like, you see something, I'm like, I really want that to be true, but it smells funny, so I'm just going to go and check. And then it's like, yeah, no, that's completely made up. But it takes a lot to sort of be conscientious about sort of reading those sorts of things when they agree with your beliefs. And a lot of what was happening then was because people were being targeted stuff that would sort of like tip them over. They already agreed with them, but it was manufactured content for the purposes of either making money from ads or, I guess, like nefarious purposes. But then what Donald Trump did, just as everyone was talking about fake news and it meant that, he started using it to apply to the mainstream media, which, like, I distrust. I'm pretty sick of the mainstream media, right? I'm pretty sick of how things are reported. I can't listen to Radio 4 anymore. And so there's obviously like a cultural thing where people are generally sort of have lost faith in a lot of these older type news channels, but that is not the same thing as, like, he tried to like hijack it in the way that a lot of this new politics have done. Like the thing that, when you're talking about one thing to mean fake news, which is what we started out talking about, they then will hijack the term, apply it to something completely different, and then you can't talk about the real problem anymore because they're using the same language to apply to something completely different.
There's a bias in all news. Whoever's the editor of whatever it is you're watching, reading, listening to, has made a choice about which stories to run with, how much time to give them, how many words, where to lay them out in the newspaper. There is always bias. That's not new.
Yeah, and we've talked about...
that's sort of like the way the sort of giving people a platform, blah, 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 and understanding who's writing an article and what their backgrounds are, understanding your own biases. Like, what you're talking about is a confirmation bias, which is a known thing. And propaganda isn't new. We used to, like, during the Second World War, the Allies used to leaflet German cities with anti-Hitler propaganda leaflets. It happened to be bits of paper flying from the sky, and many governments have put out news articles. In many countries, the main news sources are controlled by the government, so the spin on the story gets to be the spin they want you to hear. Yeah. History is written by the victors, bias. But I suppose spam is
fake news is used for spammy clickbait, and then
that's sort of.
But I think it's the same. I think that's and it's the same sort of thing, whether it is propaganda or if it is someone just harvesting, trying to make money. You could make a lot of money by like churning out these sort of true sounding, hyperbolic, sort of like politically charged stories, because you can just say anything. You just try and think what would be the most shocking thing for people to hear, and you just kind of like churn those out, and you get the clicks and you get the ad revenue, and you don't care what it does. It's just absolute kind of. It's not. I don't even want to say it's nihilism. It's just sort of. It's just blind capitalism at work. If there are no social consequences, I will do this. Oh, I've spotted a way to exploit this sort of technological structure to my own ends. But when it gets darker is when it's, employed by the likes of Cambridge Analytica and sort of where they're actually kind of targeting with a political agenda, with manufactured content designed to kind of tip undecided voters onto the side they want, with just like a little nudge. when it's intentional, that's when it's terrifying, and that's I think responsible for the technology that has resulted in Trump and Brexit happening. That's the technological landscape that has allowed that to happen. It's this secret, it's this blind bubble kind of thing where you can just be exploited and you don't know that they know something about you when they're sending you that thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's the technology. I mean, just as it's apart from the political example, there's also the sort of old snake oil example that in the olden days really would be a couple of people, walking from city to city with some bottles of snake oil telling people individually. Now they can, you can fill a Facebook stream with very accountable looking videos and things telling you
professional looking content, because it's so easy to spin it up.
Yeah. So what was the purpose of this talk? Was to talk about how one might curtail such a thing?
Yeah, it was like, can we? Well, they had this sort of like web-based Q&A system where at the start they asked everyone a question. You had to like vote yes or no, and the question was, can we fix fake news? And to which my response was like, fuck you. Yes or no? Can we fix? And then at the end they like ask it again. We've seen a 5% people think, what is that achieving? It's like, how are we going to fix fake news? To me, like, and I may have said this, my problem with it is by the time your cookie warning style solutions come in, and the GDPR, have you been on the internet recently, Ivanka? Jesus.
I have.
It's been ruined. GDPR it's like how, like you get a form, you get a questionnaire when you land on a website now. Like, I don't know, agree to all. Like, what's that helping? Like, but by the time you get that sort of like legislation in that attempts to protect people from fake news, which it'll be some like slightly weak kind of solution throws a lot of baby out with the bathwater in the process. Guess what? Fake news isn't going to be the thing anymore. It's going to be the next thing, right? It's going to be some new technological vein that's going to be exploited. Like, so to catch up, but Jesus, like that's not even the question.
The idea of duping people is not new.
No, it's absolutely as you keep saying. Like the idea of like people have and in the past, kind of misinformation has lasted thousands of years.
Like,
false information, manipulative info. I mean, you can put this on the church. You can say there's an awful lot of those 10 commandments are like God being how did ContraPoints put it? God just being really like having a really fragile ego. Like, don't talk about anyone else. Don't look at anyone else. You're not allowed to think about any other gods or anything like that. Just me. It's all about me. And then only like one or two of them are about fucking oxen. And like, there's a couple of misogynistic ones. There's like don't kill. And then like most of them are just this really kind of you go to church and it's a lot of, by modern standards, really crude sort of low-tech marketing speak. It's like, oh, your camp, that's a bit clunky. Like, but it was, they lasted a long time because, but now there are experts in that sort of thing. And now, I've worked in a marketing agency. I can spot like a marketing conceit when I see one, and like I can tell that was invented a couple of thousand years ago because it's looking pretty ropey now. And
it's not aging well.
Yeah, it's like, and that's, we're getting wise to stuff, but unfortunately the technology is moving faster and faster, and these veins that can be exploited by people are emerging faster and faster, and maybe the change that can happen is getting faster, or maybe I'm like overreacting, and maybe there's always been disinformation, there's always been misinformation, there's always people exploiting things. I mean, how much damage can you really do in a 4-year, hopefully, presidential term? And it, like Brexit, like it's our lifetime probably, but maybe the effects just, maybe they're not as monumental as we think they are because there's the battlefield is constantly shifting under our feet in such a way that we can't even...
But maybe the Trump Brexit thing is the thing that needs to happen to get people to be more discerning about what they're seeing.
Yeah, well, I think it's forward. I think it's like you ask people what they want and you be transparent and you have less centralised political control over what people are seeing and thinking. You let people think for themselves more, and you let the marketplace decide how people think. You let the market decide what the values of the culture are, instead of someone that has a moral system. This is kind of what we end up with. If it's not a forward momentum towards the next thing, if it is truly retrograde, I can't deal with that idea. But I think because it's so technologically powered that I can't really think of it as a retrograde thing. It's just behaviours we've always had being amplified and creating resonances of the likes that we haven't seen, and we're seeing this shorter and shorter feedback loop of cause and effect than we've ever seen before in history.
I'm just thinking about the letting the market decide thing.
Yeah.
So maybe that's for the next episode.
Yeah.
But I wonder whether, in a weird way, are we just getting a bit too relaxed, so therefore it's easier to dupe us? Life's a bit softer. I don't know.
I think it's literally just getting more sophisticated. Like, who knows? Oh, I didn't know that story had been specifically written to manipulate me and 10 other people like me. Why would I even suspect that? It looks like a popular news site.
Yeah.
And people don't understand the technology. I don't think people are getting more relaxed. I just think that they're being more and more bombarded. And I think we say people have a short attention span. No, there's a very competitive information environment. Like, it's just, no one's lazy. It's just they're trying to deal with a barrage of stuff coming into their faces. We're all just people still. We don't, oh my God. Like, when you start to, one of the things about the internet is suddenly you're exposed to, like, before the internet, you could pretty much more or less imagine the sorts of things that people were likely to do that you were likely to come across. But then the internet comes in, you start getting these spam emails that are just one for me. Like, when the first spam, like, okay, I get why people would send out an email to thousands of people with Viagra an advert link in it or something like that, or like some sort of like scam. But when the spam emails started to be random bits of poetry with no call to action, and you just realise the internet is a place full of so many people that anything, just the fact that a person can think about it means that someone is going to do it. It's like that rule 49, if you can think of it, there is porn of it.
Is that rule 49?
It might be rule 47, but let me just check. Let me just make sure I got it right. Rule 34, there is porn of it. No exceptions. Although I'm looking at Urban Dictionary and it's a whole list of rules of the internet. Rule 39 is there is furry porn of it, no exceptions. Full fact, Snopes, and something I've seen as well, they're playing catch-up all the time. So if someone kind of breaks a fake news story, you're not going to be able to fact check it yet. And I found this with a couple, when I've started getting more vigilant about what I saw on Facebook and like fact checking it, I noticed this, the very new stuff, like there's no Snopes page yet. So you're kind of a bit stuck then. If it is breaking fake news, it's sort of like, you can only, how do you catch up with that? You can't really. So that all goes into, we need some sort of deeper systemic way of combating this, or some sort of like more transparent. But what you could show is how fact-checked a story is. So if it is at zero still, then, and in the same way that a real news story, you wouldn't publish it without 3 sources kind of thing. That's a journalistic ethic, right? You have to make sure you have a certain number of sources before, and they have to not be the kinds of sources that, like, circular references that you can get. But you kind of need to expose that to the people looking at it. But that didn't come out of this. This is just me talking. But well, this does tie into something that Orit Kopel, co-founder and VP of Business Development at Wiki Tribune. So she's working with Jimmy Wales on this sort of Wikipedia-style news source where you can sort of see all the full interview transcripts, you can see all the kind of changes that have been made, you can see the whole history of these articles. She kept saying how that, we're hiring professional journalists. It's not sort of like Wikipedia where it's sort of anyone. It's all based on this thing. And the idea with that, I guess, is that they sort of usher in a new era of it's not enough just to write the story and be trusted as a news source. You have to write the story and kind of show your work a lot more. And maybe that improves things.
One of the things that happens when I read a story, I'll go, what is this website? Who is the person that wrote it? And I might even go like, there's loads of things. I'm forever looking up, I don't know, how to promote something, how to promote a podcast on the internet. and so you do a bit of Googling, find a thing, and then somebody's written a thing and you go, who are you? What do I know about you? Absolutely naffle. Okay, I'm not going to listen to you. I can't find any... you've used journalistic effort, accountability as phrases when you talk, when you were talking about these things. And it's like, there is a very quick fire way, or there should be, where if it's a particular journalist at a particular source, that they should be able to earn some trust.
Yes. But everyone has to be, if the playing field is simply trust, then I don't know. I would say that's not enough anymore, because everyone needs to be on a level playing field. Because it's sort of like we just need to ask more.
The idea of having sources available and transcripts of interviews and all this kind of thing. It's like, but you're the journalist. You do all the interviews and then analyse it. Do what you're going to do. And write me the news article, and I'll read that, please.
Yeah, but that's what you want. But it's like science. The whole, you publish a paper, you publish something that someone else can reproduce. You look at Wikipedia, you read an article and you go, that seems a bit off. You can go into the full history of it and see, but you don't do that every time. But the fact that it's there means that there's going to be more. You're going to be reading the tip of the iceberg, and there's people that will read everything. There'll be Richard Stallmans that will want
News
to
Richard,
check everything out. And you just sort of, the reason I am comfortable clicking I accept on terms and conditions on things is because I know there are people that I'm confident that I will see the story of. Facebook just changed their privacy policy to mean that they can do this with your data. I have faith in the internet that the internet will discover if they're up to something, and I will see that story. If I didn't, I would read all of it because I don't know what else you can do. But the fact that you sort of know someone will... and that that you could if you needed to. I think that's something that where science has to do that. And if we're talking about people making random stuff up that seems true, which is something that scientists could try as well, you have to have this infrastructure of just showing your work, I guess. So, but this isn't something that even came out of it. I think like Wiki Tribune is sort of built on that, and I don't know if we can expect to see more of that. I think what Facebook have started doing with the little fucking eye that goes, "This is our website." Okay, right, cool, thanks, that helped.
But don't. But even with a scientific paper, they also get peer reviewed. It'd be quite interesting to see an article written in the Telegraph, peer-reviewed by journalists from The Guardian.
Be good, wouldn't it?
We could do that. That could be fun. Because again, this sort of, I don't know if this is a fake news thing, this whole, we've had enough of experts. I have not had enough of experts. There is too much to know and too much going on for me to possibly be expert enough, even to sometimes ask the right questions.
Yeah.
That's the hard thing.
But I have to say, like this, when the panel of people that talked were referred to as experts at the end of it, I was like, "What? I mean, that's not. No one here seemed to have any expertise on this particular subject. They may have been experts in their feet. I mean, there was a couple of this night. Just to sort of talk about the evening a little bit. It was all very. There was too many people up there. And then it would just. like there was like a Tory person and a Labour person, and it was Tulip Sadiq, who I like. She seems cool, and then like this Tory guy Lee Rowley. And then there was another Labour guy. Tulip wasn't quite as guilty of this, but a couple of times the discussion just got derailed into, well, the Conservative government did this to school dinners, and this was misreported. And they started having these partisan arguments, which just to me was like, okay, well, you might as well just delete this out of the whole discussion now, because it bears no relation to thing. It's completely empty. It just reminded me how non-debate our parliamentary debates are. How there is you don't listen to what the other person says. You don't really make arguments in good faith. You just say the party line. You kind of squirt this stuff out. The other person ignores it, squirts their stuff out, and neither party is any the better off at the end of it. That's not a debate. And so it was interesting seeing people trying to have a conversation about something mixed with the occasional that kind of utter facade of debate that we've come to accept as somehow legitimate. There was one thing where someone said, oh, well, the House of Lords is ahead of the game a little bit, even more than the House of Commons on a lot of this stuff. And I was like, I mean, you're just talking about that blockchain paper that went around. I saw that. I was like, yeah, I guess you could say that, but they're still completely clueless. Tulip Sadiq seemed to be under the impression that with some effort, it would be possible to catch up to this stuff and start legislating for it. Whereas Lee Rowley, that guy, sort of shared my nihilism on it. So you're never going to catch up. I think it was Lee that... Yeah, well, but that's what he said. But then he also said, but what is truth? At one point, I was like, beautiful. This is not the time and the place. But he did say, I guess the Conservative line being like, it has to be the platforms. We can't police what people say. Like he has, someone set up a fake account to troll him, and he can say he happens not to like it, but the person who set up this account does have a right to be satirical. Tulip was saying about some, she got really under attack because she said something about Trump visiting, and she got absolutely kind of like jumped on by the internet and attacked and trolled, and like death threats and people like revealing her address and things like this, and some really dark stuff. And she just couldn't get anything out of Twitter to kind of do anything about it. So, but to some extent, like the platforms are responsible for this.
Yes.
And they need to have a value-based way of, the fact that the verified person can say, look, this stuff is happening, they can see everything that's going on, and the power the platforms have probably makes them terrified, because shouldn't they have turned off Trump's account a long time ago?
Yeah, well, yeah, totally. But I think, but I do think some of this is to do with the fact that we've got analog models for some of these things that we're not bringing online. Like, the right to protest. You can organise a demonstration, but you have to let the police know, and you can't just go and stand outside somebody's house and hurl death threats at them. And we've got to start treating the technology as we do our offline world, frankly. And it should be policed just as much as your streets are.
Yeah. And something Tulip said, like, the Leave campaign overspent on the thing, but the fines just weren't enough. They just paid the fine. Right. Like, the punishments for this stuff aren't anywhere near as severe as they should be, because people sort of don't think it's real, but it's more real than anything.
It's just because it's on the internet, because the internet being full of lies or whatever, or being light-hearted or full of porn, doesn't make it something that isn't serious and doesn't need policing properly.
It's still people.
It's like... Yeah, and I mean, I think that example of the Leave campaign not being fined properly, that really is probably one of the most disappointing things that I've had come out of Britain for a long time, because that's the kind of shit banana republics pull. Yeah. Is that, I don't know if you're allowed to call things banana republics anymore, but, like some tin pot dictator in somewhere obscure does stuff like manipulate the news to their advantage, not Britain. That's a kind of sign of decay, if there ever was one.
Okay, this episode ended up being a bit longer than we necessarily planned, so I'm actually going to break it up into two. And we're going to stop there, and we're going to have two sort of short episodes, or maybe a little bit of a bastardized episode. So, yeah, thanks for listening to part one of Fake News. If you like the podcast, find us at grandpodcast.com. What else can people do, Ivanka?
People can find me at Ivanka on Twitter. Where can they find you, Michael?
You can find me at michaelforestmusic.com. And you can, so please share our podcast. Please tell people if they don't know how to do them. Send the thing, come to the website, hit subscribe if you haven't already. And, why? Why should they? Because this is important, isn't it?
It's definitely important.
I quit my job at LBI because I got sick and tired of my brain getting filled up with what was wrong with this company, the way that they were doing something that was so unbelievably trivial seeming in the grand scheme of things, and it was hijacking my entire consciousness. And I was like, I need to leave, because I feel like if I start thinking about something, then I've got quite a lot to say about it, and I don't want to be thinking about your bullshit. I want to be thinking about the real stuff. And now 10 years after I first quit a job because I had that feeling, finally I have a weekly platform, a weekly conversation with you, Ivanka, who's also there, and we are talking about subjects that actually should be thought about in some depth. And for that, I'm profoundly grateful, and I just really hope that you can see that that's important. Not you, Ivanka, you listener. I know you see it's important, Ivanka, because you turn up every week. But seriously, this is, I tried to do it through blog posts, I tried to put it in music, I tried to do it in these different ways, but I feel like this podcast, finally I get to have ramble rants on things that actually mean something. So, cool, right? Can we keep it going? Help us keep it going. Share it, spread it, we need attention. Surely you can see that perspective, that this is important. Bye! No, what do you think, Ivanka?
I think that was a very heartfelt outpouring there, Michael Forrest.
Well, thank you. And made me very uncomfortable.
No, I don't know how to respond.
No.
No, I think that, I agree. I agree with you, Michael.
Thanks.
I agree.
Right. Bye, everyone. Thanks for listening.
Bye.
Ciao.
Bye.
I can say ciao because my girlfriend's Italian.